Good morning, St. Francis. Good morning, people of God. It is Thursday, the 14th day of December, 2023, Thursday of the second week of Advent, 11 days until Christmas Day. Today is also the memorial of St. John of the Cross. St. John of the Cross, poor St. John of the Cross, Carmelite reformer in the 1400s, 1500s, who was not really accepted as a reformer, as most reformers are not accepted. And so he struggled a lot at his great treatise on the dark night of the soul, where basically he felt as though he had been abandoned by God and his vocation and everything else like that, because he was trying to get his brother Carmelites to live the rule that they had originally established more faithfully and more authentically, and nobody wanted to do that because being a religious in those centuries could carry a lot of benefits, and you could live really high on the hog. But this is where John suffers and tried to call his brothers back, to their origins of simplicity and poverty and things like that. He goes in and out, feeling abandoned by God and lost by God, and again and again and again. It seems sometimes that's the whole cycle: is abandonment by God, to be rescued by God, to be abandoned again. He had a lot of issues, so that's not necessarily how God works. Although God does work bringing life out of death, but not so that we go back into death again. John needed a little bit more refining, of his theology and his perspective, but his courage in still trying to press for reform, and still trying to help the community return to its origins and become more authentic is what we admire and what we celebrate today. He a contemporary with Teresa of Avila, or in parallel course with Teresa of Avila for the women Carmelites, who also suffered because of her desire for reform of the order. John, suffers in the same kind of company. And so we remember him as somebody, again, who struggles, wanting God to be God, wanting God to deliver, himself and his community, as well as the faithful, from everything that stops them from living an authentic life as believers, which again is what Advent is all about, and why John does kind of again rank as one of the important Advent saints in this season. The whole idea about rescue, that this is what God says in Isaiah today, is that God is going to rescue. It is interesting again that again, because Israel is in dire straits. It is moving into exile. Through the prophet Isaiah, God calls Israel a maggot and a worm. But again, to put down their arrogance and to help them realize that because of their own actions, they are now in this state of disarray and disorder and chaos and loss. But then again, God says, I am going to rescue you. I am going to help you become again a people, and I am going to create again from what has fallen apart and what's fallen into disarray. Again, a God who rescues, a God who comes, to our aid, a God who really doesn't even have to be asked, but God does so naturally because of who and what God is. This is what, again, we celebrate in Advent. Not a God who punishes and who wants to punish. We really don't even celebrate a God who wants to punish in Lent, but we keep thinking that way, all the time, because unfortunately, medieval and early, modern era thinking that was so stupid, it just kind of got in the way of us truly realizing, who and what God is and what God is all about. And so again, we hear the truth from Isaiah today that basically says, it's like, I am a God who's going to make things better. I always make things better. God needs us to cooperate, with that making of things better. But that is really what the whole journey in faith is about, is learning to cooperate with God and learning to trust that God is the God who's going to make things better, because that is in the nature of God and who God is. In the Gospel today, again, we have this very interesting statement by John. It's coming after John's beheading, but Jesus basically says, among no one born of a human being, has been greater than John the Baptist, again, who announces him. But then Jesus does a great put down by saying, but even the least born into the kingdom of heaven are greater than John. Again, why put down his cousin? Why put down John, who basically wanted to reveal the Messiah, to the world? Well, again, always have to remember who John prophesizes the Messiah to be. Jesus isn't necessarily that. Jesus is not coming to settle scores. Jesus is not coming for vengeance. Jesus is not coming, again, to separate, holy from unholy, from, what is good from what is bad. Jesus comes to gather together what has fallen apart, to gather back together those who have lost their way, to help people realize, the more and the wonder in their life, that they cannot do on their own, or that unfortunately, faulty and misguided principles of faith have unfortunately led them, again, into these dark nights of the soul, thinking that there's a God that there is no God, or if there is a God, this God doesn't care about them. John was good at pointing out the Messiah, who Jesus comes to be, is even beyond John's expectations, which again comes back to us. Again, who is it that we proclaim? Who is it that we announce to the world is the Messiah? Is it a God of vengeance, a God of terror, a God who settles scores, a God of punishments, a God of damnation, or is it a God of love? Is it a God of love who comes to us, out of love, who comes to us because this God wants to experience all that is creation, and the summit of creation being us in our maggot worminess, in all of our faults and our failings, this God who sees something that is glorious and wonderful to be a part of. This is what Advent tries to teach us again and again, to expect this kind of God and to reveal this God to the world, because it is given to us as the least born into the kingdom of heaven, into the reign of God, to have the great responsibility to do so. A continued blessed Advent, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.